I'm Mahala, and you are watching 110 Football.
And we're back. It's the triumphant return of LAFC 360. We took a little bit of a hiatus, and things are a little bit different around here. We'll get to that. But before we do, I want to introduce the great panel I've got with me. It's Max Bretos, the voice of LAFC, and Christian Filimon, Philly from Defenders of the Bank. Boys, are you excited that LAFC 360 is back?
Sure. It's great to be back. And, you know, we missed the show. And some of our regulars are back. We know some may not be back immediately, but we will ease them back into our show and we'll get right into the conversation that we left off. You know, I always like to pick up conversations that you left off a couple of weeks ago. I'm very good at that.
Monday's one of these, days of the week where you don't really have too much going on other than the weekend hangover. And Mondays went meh once again. But now that we're all back together, we get to all hang out. And Mondays just got good again.
We are all back together. We beg your forgiveness for all you regulars. We missed you. We know that we left you kind of out in the cold for a couple of weeks, but we're back. And like I said, things are a little bit different, but some things are still the same. And one of those things is make sure if you haven't already, you're subscribing to this channel because we are back for good. I promise this time. We're going to keep bringing the show to you guys on Mondays. We're back. And get in that chat. Get busy in the chat. One of the changes that we made is it's a little bit more of a casual setting. As you can see, we're at home. Max Bretos is in a Rothko painting. That's what he lives in. Philly is in his fan cave. But we're gonna kind of deconstruct the show a little bit more, and we're gonna actually use the chat more. So the more active you guys are in the chat, sending us questions, things like that, the more active we will be.
You should have just said what Andres said and said, this is for COVID protocols that we're in these 4 blocks.
Yes, I can't be this close to you guys anymore. We can't put anything else up our nose, boys. We need to just go ahead. No more COVID tests.
That would be a COVID test, by the way. A COVID test.
What were you referring to?
I don't know. I just wanted some clarity because it kind of came kind of very abruptly. But I live in Redondo Beach. We had a long drive to Burbank. Easy for Philly. He lives up there. But that drive can be
0.43 miles away.
Philly took his bicycle for a little behind the scenes reveal. Speaking of behind the scenes, Philly, your fan cave is quite extraordinary. There's a lot going on in there. What's the favorite thing in that fan cave behind you?
There's 2 things I really like. You can't see it behind my shoulder, but there's a Paul Gascoigne framed jersey from his time in England wearing the number 19. But the one thing that I have in my collection of things that I love that not a lot of people have is this. And this happens to be a feather that fell off of Ollie. Ken the Falconer, a good friend of mine who used to live in Burbank down the road from my house, he gifted it to me. And so to me, this is one of the coolest things I have because, well, how many people can literally say they've got Ollie's feather?
And now we all know that Ken lives in Burbank. So
not anymore. Not anymore.
Okay, we don't.
Okay, well, if you could go ahead and give out his address, let's go. No, I'm kidding. I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say it's some kind of writing quill.
I would love to.
Well, I mean, it kind of looks like it. Sure.
It's an active falconry. That's what it's called. So there's a lot going on there. You know, he is an expert in the world of falcons. So to be at his abode, you'd probably see some really cool things. More than a feather.
Well, no, you have all the falcons that were hanging out in his garage. And I mean, it was fantastic getting to see Bond and getting to see like Fig and all them and their temperaments. It was a trip. They're just sitting there staring at you with this look of like anger. It was a good thing that he had him tied up.
The voice of our producer, Chris, who's in the chat, as you can see in that lower 4th box. He's the one kind of pulling the strings on that chat. I thought he was going to tell us we got to move along. But I think this is his nice way of saying we got to move along. But if anyone in the chat knows, along. Yeah, does anybody in the chat know what an actual like home of a falcon is? I don't think it's called falconry. That's the actual act of. Is it a falcon aviary home? I don't know. Let us know in the chat. Let's get into the match that we're still going. Let's move on. All right, Chris, we're going to move on. I promise we're moving on. Guys, like I said, we changed it up a little bit. It's a little bit looser, but we go right into the San Jose match, and we have 4 big questions for you and the panel. So get involved in the chat. The first question is, what happened? What happened? 2-1. Max Bretos, you called the game. What happened?
It's not unexpected, right? There was a lot of changes, or 5 changes to the 11 after they played an odd Tuesday game. And while you have Tuesday to Saturday as a window, you still have a hangover effect from playing Saturday, Tuesday, where there's 2 games. So, this is where the management really comes into view. And Steve Cherundolo still was able to put a very good starting 11 out there. And I'm just not surprised. They've struggled there up in San Jose in recent weeks. The surface, obviously, we'll talk about, was a real distraction. LAFC were just not ready for something like that, and that's been a recurring problem for the situation there at PayPal Park. But there are going to be games like this. I don't want to sweep it under the rug as saying something like that, because now it amplifies the Austin game. And if you look at the last 2 home games, it wasn't a great first half against Charlotte, and DC United was a grind. They obviously had that incredible second half, but if you look at it in 6 little episodes of LAFC football, if you break them down half to half, there's a little concerns with the execution in the final third, which is things we've said in the past. This is still a team in turnover. We'll see how it fixes, but I'm not too concerned. But these next game or two, you want to make sure that they get out of bad habits.
I mean, I would say we started coming back down to earth. Max alluded to it, that we didn't look great against DC United, and we saw how badly DC United got smacked over the weekend. I don't have the concerns that a lot of people do, because I think this loss comes at a pretty good time, and I'll explain that during my stoppage time. But essentially, we did come back down to earth. I mean, 3 games over the course of 8 days, that's a lot to ask. And, you could put all the blame on certain players. You can put it on management. You can say this, the tinkering of the lineup, seeing Ryan Hollingshead up top. We'll obviously discuss this, but, I think this came at a pretty good time. I mean, for San Jose, this game certainly meant a lot more to them than probably it meant to us. I don't want to say we overlooked the Earthquakes, because the Austin's really the game that we want to focus on, probably our toughest match going forward. But for San Jose, I mean, this was their MLS Cup. For them, their season's done. 33 points behind us, 13th place, a dumpster fire of a team with a coach in the loom waiting. I mean, this was their MLS Cup. They certainly had more to play for tonight, or rather a couple nights ago, than we did.
Just to follow up, Philly, they didn't overlook San Jose, but if you were going to do an alternate lineup and you wanted to save some legs, this was the game to do it.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that at all.
Well, ahead of Austin, and then you also prioritize the 2 matches you had at home against Eastern Conference foes, where you really felt, let's maximize those matches at home, 1, for the 3 points, 2, for your fan base. I mean, look, if you're going to rotate anywhere, do it on the road, right? And then, yes, it just happens to be San Jose. I think we're putting a lot into this because we're saying San Jose is not good, and that's the only reason why they rotated. I think if we would have been on the road to Philly, they would have rotated, knowing that Austin is their direct competitor in the West. So I don't put too much into that. But I will say that for those of you guys in the chat, and you guys are pointing this out, I put it on Steve Cherundolo. I mean, Steve would have worn that himself. It's his job to pick the players. He really says, honestly, it's one of the only things that managers can do in a match is pick the players to start. And when it doesn't work out, he's the first to say it's on me. I would say, though, one thing that some people pointed out in the chat, and one thing I was a little worried about, was the intensity. I thought, at least with the way he set up this team, they could have pressed a little bit better and been a little bit more on top of San Jose, and just didn't feel like it was there. And maybe it was because the passing was bad, the surface was bad, and so that kind of gets, once you start having those doubts in your head, it's tough to press. It's tough to trust that when you move forward, a teammate's going to be behind you. But yeah, it was a tough watch all around.
And to emphasize your point, Vince, it also shows that when it comes to passing, and we talked about it off air, Kellen Acosta, popped off the screen because of his passing, because of the set pieces. He was really involved. And to me, he feels like a much more important player after that game, especially if you don't have Ilie Sanchez. You've got to find the guys. Obviously, Carlos Vela is an elite passer, and he wasn't on the field. But you got to find multiple guys that can connect 2-3 passes or more in any sequence.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's interesting. We've referred to PayPal Park jokingly as Bank of California North, but we really can't call it that anymore. I mean, this is our 4th straight loss up in San Jose, and if you look at it, this is San Jose's first win since they beat the Galaxy in Carson. San Jose's been very successful against the California teams. And if we actually had a cup to play for, I mean, Sacramento would actually have probably taken the mantle there. But it's just crazy that San Jose certainly rises to the occasion against the Galaxy and lately against us.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of you are kind of segueing us into our next question, was what we learned. Max had a very good point. When you play a certain style, you need players in certain roles. There was no passers out there. One passer. There was Kellen Acosta, and the rest of the guys. I think a lot of people are pointing out Sebastian Mendez had a rough day. I think it was a big shocker for him. It really was. But in other games that we've seen him, his passing's pretty good. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. And my thing is, what we learned is this team is so predicated on movements and understanding of teammates. There were so many pairings on the field that just did not work. Escobar to Hollingshead did not work.
Not to be expected, because a lot of these they're seeing this for the first time.
Fair. Yeah, I mean that's what we're saying. Like, you need to have a little bit of consistency, and unfortunately when you rotate, that's the first thing that goes out the window, right? And so these guys never built into the game. They never earned the right to play in the game, I would think. And fortunately, actually, in a way, I didn't think San Jose was actually really that good.
No, but they certainly had their opportunities. I mean, Jeremy Abobasi gave us a run for our money. I mean, Tommy Thompson, got to give a shout out to my alma mater, Indiana University. He certainly came out there.
His best game I've ever seen him play, by the way.
Oh yeah, he was fantastic. But once again, like what I ended up seeing was San Jose was exceptionally physical. And if we look at our teams in the past, like Portland, for example, like they would beat up on us and that would kind of fluster our team. Chicho got beat up a lot over the course of the game. There's no doubt about that. But what I liked seeing, and this is compared to last season's team could have folded after that first or that second goal. This team still fought till the very end, and I don't think at any point throughout the course of the match, and I think you guys would agree with me and the people in the chat would as well, I really thought we would come out of this game with a tie, which with the way we played would have been a win for all intents and purposes. I mean, Gareth Bale coming into the game was exciting. Ryan Hollingshead obviously was that wait, what moment that we were all scratching our heads, and you referred to it on the broadcast, Max, but this isn't like a shocking position for him. When he played at UCLA, I mean, he played in the midfield. He was a forward. He's been up top during games with LAFC. He's put goals in the back of the net. So not a surprise, but not a total surprise considering his history in that position.
It was an odd situation for that to be there, but he's going to fill some gaps. He played some midfield against DC United as well. He has been very outspoken about wherever they need me, I'm going to play. And that makes him a very valuable member of this team. But yeah, there's some things that we're not going to see again for the remainder of the season. And I think the partnerships are a big part, but something I'll talk about a little bit later. This is still a work in progress team. Guys are coming and going, and you've got to figure out what's going to be your best team, how you incorporate everybody for this stretch run of 8 games and then the playoffs. And it's probably a good idea that LAFC focus on, as without sounding cliche, but game to game, and not this big picture of we've got to accomplish all these things in the next 8 games, which is mostly coming from us. I know Steve Cherundolo's probably kept it pretty incubated with regards to that there, and they're focusing at it. But we mount a lot of pressure on this team because they've been great. And now it's like you've got to buckle down and be resourceful and obtain those things organically.
As David says in the chat, smash that like button. It's a slightly different show, but there's some things that always remain the same. So definitely smash that like button. And for Neeson asking about Christian Teo updates, we'll definitely take questions. We're going to be more involved with the chat. We can go as long as we want on questions. So have those ready when I ask for them, so that you can type them in. We can go back to them. We got a little bit more to get to on San Jose, and then we're going to transition into Austin. And a good place to do that is, where do we go? Where do we go from here? I think Max kind of alluded to some of it, some of the things. For me, crumple it up, throw it away. I honestly just think this is something you won't see again. I know a lot of people were worried, oh man, if we see something like this in the playoffs, you will not see this lineup in the playoffs, unless some travesty where there's just an injury bug or something going on. So for me, if I'm Steve Cherundolo, I say, look guys, I made the changes. I wanted to rest some guys, put it out of your mind. The biggest match we have all season is on Friday in Austin. I think that's where I would put my head if I was starting training this week.
I would just maintain what Philly said, which I thought was a really good point. You're going to see these physical games in the run-in. most likely, depending on the matchup you get in the playoffs, you'll probably see it there. So remember how it felt, remember how you reacted, and make sure that you're thorough with this, because you're not going to like it, but there's going to be a game. They're just going to have to muscle through and find a way to get a result.
I look at it, LAFC o'clock. He bringing up a pretty good point. Yeah, most of San Jose's attacks certainly came in on that right side. In fact, both of their goals came in on that one side. So that was a very interesting set of circumstances. They had some pretty good goals, man. And like I think one of the biggest culprits, in particular, that Cade Cowell goal. That pitch, and Steve referred to it on the post game conference. That pitch was abysmal. I know the San Jose Sharks playing San Jose, but it looked like they were skating on ice. And I'm talking about LAFC. Amanda, my wife, aka the Panda, host of Angels Wear Boots, by the way, picked up on something really interesting. Escobar was a guilty party for slipping on the pitch quite a bit. If you looked at what he was wearing,
also on the Cal goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look, Escobar ended up changing his boots. I think he went from the white boots in the first half to the black boots. And that still didn't help because he slipped. Cade Cowell hit a rocket. And you can argue that he might have scored the goal anyway. But with Escobar not slipping in that position, he could have potentially jumped, ricocheted, deflected it, caused Cade Cowell to second guess himself. I mean, the pitch certainly had a factor in the game. You don't want to blame it on Mother Nature or the groundskeeper, but you can't help but notice the fact that our boys are slipping and sliding everywhere.
Well, the league's got to crack down on that, and San Jose is going to be held accountable because this is not something new. This is not an isolated incident.
This is a couple years problem, and that's a good detail. I'm sure Escobar probably switched to those hybrid studs. That right side was tough, and I think it goes back to partnerships. You know, you have Cheeky Palacios, who's so good at getting up and down the field, but remember who's normally kind of out to that side. Kellen Acosta covers so much ground, but he's playing more as the 6. He's more in a central role. Mendez, who we have already said kind of had a bit of a shocker. So for San Jose to use their tactics and use their best player, who I think is their best player, Christian Espinoza, to just get in behind any chance he could get. I mean, Cheeky didn't have a good game, but he was really up against it because he really kind of missed his partner on the left side. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. This team plays so well because they trust each other. They know where each other's going to be. These movements are almost automated. They can do it in their sleep, and that's what makes a really good team. And that's where you see kind of the difference in class between a good team and a great team. And then when you take that on the flip side, when you rotate a lot, then you see just a really non-fluid, just kind of doubting themselves. I really think the intensity boiled down to really doubting themselves in this match. So I think, again, we want to go back to it. Where do you go from here? You just tell them, guys, let it go. Throw it away. We're still a very good team, as Craig points out. 7 wins out of 8, not bad. Obviously, we won 7 in a row, but any MLS team would take 7 wins out of 8, especially going into, once again, their biggest match of the season, which is out there in Austin. And as we look at that game, I'd like to ask you guys a question because as people have pointed out, Ilya Sanchez will miss this game. 2 yellow cards. We can talk about whether we think they're both yellow cards. Actually, not going to be a homer on this one. I think at the end of the day, you can't be clumsy when you're on a yellow. Ilya steps on the guy's foot. It's another yellow for me.
The ball was very far away too. That's the thing. I don't think it was a malicious. It was almost like a stomp on the foot, although he did catch the Achilles. But the ball was so far away. It'd be hard to argue it. Yeah, it wasn't a hard press. It wasn't malicious. But the referee's always going to win that conversation if you have it with him.
I mean, I just think that the officials were gearing themselves more towards LAFC, and some of these cards that got pulled out of their back pocket, I don't know, to me, in a sense, they felt like makeup calls because there was a lot of really soft yellows. I mean, Ibiaga got a really soft one. Towards the end of the game, Murillo got called for a foul. That was nowhere. That was not even a foul at all. So I don't think it was properly
officiated. You're talking
officiated.
about the one where with Montero where their feet kind of landed at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, he called it, and that could have been a crucial play right there with us on the counter. So, I mean, I just felt like there were more makeup calls that the officials needed to make because I think they were more LAFC sided, in particular within the first 45 to 50 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if you're going to give out 2 yellows, Eric Remedi was definitely looking for 2 yellows, and he
should have got a second one late. Yeah.
He should have. He was out there to just search and destroy. But let's look ahead though. Let's just put the San Jose game completely out of our minds in a way. Let's try to build what we think Steve Cherundolo might be thinking going into Austin, because there's going to be some lineup decisions. As somebody pointed out, what is load management? One of those might be is Giorgio Chiellini off load management. Load management basically is they look at the sports science, they look at how much these guys have run, they look at their heartbeat, how they're sleeping. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, and they say, at this moment, this guy might be closer to injury than ever before. So what can we do? You rest him. So that's load management. But let's look at that starting 11. I think we'll start in goal, and I don't think there's any change there. Maxime Crepeau has definitely come on in recent weeks. One of my favorite things about Maxime hasn't just been his saves, which he's made some nice saves. It's his commanding of the box. There was a moment, I believe, against DC where there was an early cross, and it kind of floated a little bit, and Max was immediately off his line and just like, I'm going to catch this. Guys, don't even worry about heading it. I'm going to take command. I'm going to catch this. So Max, I say, is in there for sure. I think maybe we can all agree Cheeky Palacios always and forever will be the left back upon further notice. But now we get into that center back pairing. And where does your mind go? Because Giorgio Chiellini has missed a few games. Obviously, he plugged in very well when he went, and joined them in Nashville. But do you risk bringing in Giorgio for Eddie after Eddie's been so good? What are you guys' thoughts?
If Chiellini's good, you bring him in. The Chiellini-Murillo tandem has put enough work together that I think that they have a familiarity. It's looked really good at by the very end when they were playing together. They looked super comfortable. I wouldn't feel bad about putting Eddie Segura in there. It's great cover, and this is one of the benefits of this team. So whether it's Segura, Murillo, which it probably will be at this point, but if Chiellini can go, and we've seen him put him in, he made his debut, and he started very early in this process. So if he's ready to go, I think he could probably be a candidate too. But it's going to be one of those two against Murillo, and Murillo continues to be close to rock solid. And it's amazing when you think about it, when you go through the list of players who are the most irreplaceable. And now Murillo's certainly high up on that list, and a relief that you get to plug him in every week.
Yeah, and he's certainly starting to get involved offensively as well. I know they were talking about working on set pieces, and he's such a big, imposing figure that you're going to want him to crash in and potentially get a header in the box. So Murillo has his position locked down, no doubt. And I agree with Max in the sense that if Chiellini's good and he doesn't need to be placed on load management, let him get the start. But, I mean, until he's like 100% healthy, good to go and whatnot. And by the way, he did not make the trip to San Jose, in case people were wondering. Eddie Segura, I mean, I think that's always been his position. I feel that it's a positive thing that he did play a full 90, got 75 the next game. And certainly when he got into the game, along with some of our other subs in the 65th, 68th minute, you certainly started seeing some of the LAFC of old come out within that 10, 15-minute period. But to me, Murillo lockdown, and yes, you could switch between Chiellini and Segura.
What about this comment by Jesus? He says, do you think we can play Segura as a sixth against Austin? I don't think he starts it, but that's an option if your midfield is thinned out, which it's going to be without Ilie.
But did you think 6 was a problem defensively or distributing the ball against San Jose?
Well, no, I thought it was good across the board. I thought defensively good enough.
Oh,
distribution, it was our best. Kellen.
Okay, you're thinking to move Kellen, so you have Kellen more as your 8. I get it.
No, I say keep Kellen, start Kellen,
right.
But I think it's interesting if you make some adjustments. If you want to move Kellen a little further up, then you can bring Eddie, depending on how the game goes. It's an option that Steve Cherundolo has, and you could use it. He could play that position. Maybe not for 90 minutes.
You know, I love the way we're talking now because we're talking about roles and balance. And I always try to tell people, like, formations are not as important as roles or balance. So that's why I enjoy this conversation. I think going back to the center backs, I would start. It's either you start Chiellini and you have Escobar as your right back because you have Chiellini such a good passer out of the back line. If you have Eddie Segura, I'm thinking you start Hollingshead because Escobar gives me nothing going forward. Can't carry the ball forward, can't really pass forward. So I think that's something Steve has to look at. So for me, it would be Chiellini, Murillo. They've just been so good. You get that extra added passing, the benefit of being able to get the ball, maybe bypass midfield, get it directly to Vela's feet, and really go at Austin, who I think, even though they've gotten better at it, can still be beaten in defensive transition, especially with Driussi just floating everywhere. And then you have so Chiellini, Murillo, Escobar. I think ahead of you, I wouldn't get cute as much as I think it is an option to bring in Eddie late in the game if you need it. I think you just go Kellen 6 because he was good. He's a great passer. Obviously, you need Sifu in there. I think we didn't really talk about it, but I think what we really missed against San Jose was the link between midfield and attack. And that's Sifu all the way, right? Latif just didn't do it. Mendez had a tough game. I think it's tough. How do you count on Mendez?
You want to put Mendez.
I want to put Mendez in there, but how do you count on him after the game he had? So maybe you can't really.
I think
I don't know.
Latif and Mendes both play in this game because instead of the 5 midfielders, you're down to 4. And knowing the substitution patterns, all 4 midfielders are going to get a game. So maybe you get Mendes in there for a little more defensive cover, especially on the road. I think it makes sense, knowing full well that Latif could be really spry to come in at the half. He's done that role before. He deserves to start the game, but you've got to, if you're Steve Cherundolo, you got to figure how to use both those midfielders because they're both going to play.
We'll talk
I
about
think
guys
Mendes could have himself a nice comeback game, realizing that he didn't play. I mean, this was his 5th appearance for LAFC, his first start. And yes, we could argue he did not have a good game. He did get a couple of shots heading towards JT Marcinkowski, so at least we got to nod our head to him that way. But I mean, I feel like he could have a nice rebound game. I certainly wouldn't start him. I love Latif coming off the bench. He's the star man. He certainly adds some pizzazz. But looking at how deep we are and comparing this to 2018 and 2019, we've got so much more firepower coming off the bench. Whereas Latif really was that energizer bunny coming in. I would like to see him start. More importantly, I would like to see the kid score. He's certainly working towards it. I mean, that Mahala goal essentially came off of him dispossessing a forward for San Jose. So we had a beautiful Accra-to-Accra connection, but I'm really dying to see Latif score. Offensively, this hasn't been his greatest season. That's for sure.
Andres, I love you, but Cristosimo over Mendes, not in a million.
Mendes,
no way. And I love
Mendes is not in the
Danny Cristosimo.
Mendes is not in the good graces with the chat room. So I say, look, he just got here. This was a tough spot, and it was going to be a lot of, introductions to new players. So we got to be patient with them. He certainly deserves that. Well,
talking about guys that deserve to start, how do you sit Mahala at this point? We're talking about who the wingers are. Carlos Vela starts this game. So he's happening. He's your right wing. But on the left side, I know a lot of you guys want to see Bale. The guy hasn't played more than 20 some odd minutes yet. I just can't see him starting. Yeah.
No, he can't start.
No, I think it's got to be Mahala. Mahala's, he's scored consecutive matches, saved our butts, and he's just been so good. I mean, that run, that finish, that was everything coming together in Mahala. It's all coming together for Mahala. So I think start him, run him, tell him, hey, run yourself ragged. Maybe you pick up a goal. But Mahala, Vela are my wingers, and then Chicho. You start Chicho up top, but remind him, hey, man, really should have made that chance at the end of the game. Like, you kind of let us down. We've relied on you. You've carried us a lot, but in the one moment we needed you in that match, the time when you as Steve says, can disappear for 89 minutes, but you always show up at the right moment. This time you didn't. So we really need you against Austin. I think that would be the team talk for him.
Yeah, there's no way you sit Mahala. I mean, with the run of form he's having. I mean, he scored lucky number 7 the other day, 2 games in a row. I mean, he's been a joyous revelation. We've been talking about him all throughout the season. He should keep his spot. Chicho, yes, he could have converted. I mean, you remember that turnaround banger that he had off the post in the first half. Had that hit the back of the net, we're talking about a goal of the week, if not potential goal of the year candidate for him. So, striker's going to strike. And a guy like him, kind of like Babe Ruth said, he either swings, he misses big, or he hits big. So that's just the kind of guy that he is. But you got to also tip your hat off to his tenacity, his grit. Again, he played his tail off. He didn't convert, but he certainly could have crumbled under the pressure. He kept going till the final whistle, and that's what you want to see out of your striker and your leading scorer.
It's going to be Mahala, Chicho, and Vela. And Chicho, I know sometimes it feels a little rudderless, but the work was there. He put himself in positions, as Philly said. They gave him the once over physically. Some pretty bad tackles at times as well. Just a lot of collisions to try and slow him down, and he worked his way through it. He was a big part of getting that chance, Vince, at the end because of his press. It popped up in the air, and normally you would figure he would finish that. So I feel good about Chicho. I know that there's still the space defensively that you have to compensate for, and without Ilie and with that midfield, and maybe that's why Mendes makes a little bit more sense because of his defensive wherewithal, that you need to compensate at that point. But Mahala's been so clinical. I saw your tweet about 22 under 22. He's got to be high on that list at this point with the way he is scoring and saving LAFC's tail here a couple times, because as you know, and we're hearing all this on social media, perhaps some big turnover here coming with the club and certainly at the attacking end, and we have to wait and see. But right now they have Mahala, and I think that's an easy plug to make especially in this game and potentially the next couple games moving forward as a starter?
Yeah, I mean, we've said it a couple times. You have to have star power, you have to have firepower, but what makes you a truly elite and great team is that when those stars create openings for maybe kind of role players or guys that you don't think of big contract guys, they take advantage of it. Mahal has taken advantage of every single opportunity that the Velas, the Chichos, the Bales have created for him. So that's a good thing for LAFC. Like, it's a good problem to have, because in this league we've seemed to have found that yes, your DPs have to hit, but then you got to have a few guys that aren't on DP contracts playing almost at a DP level. I would say Mahala, I'm not looking to make him a DP all of a sudden, but he's definitely playing at a level where you'd say he deserves a better contract or really to be locked down in the going forward. Okay, so guys, we've gone over San Jose. We talked a little bit about Austin. That's the big match coming up on Friday. Now it's my favorite time. It's time for questions. So you guys have been peppering us with questions all throughout, and I think a good place to start probably is what's going on. Who's Christian Teo? What's going on with Christian Teo? Where's Bawanga? I think let's just take the DP as a whole, the two DPs it looks like now as a whole. I can say for Bawanga, look, they're trying to get him here as quickly as they can. His preseason, he did all the work in preseason. He played a full 90 minutes with his previous team with Saint Etienne, so he doesn't really need fitness. It's just this now boils down to something that's out of LAFC's hands: visa, immigration. Some people
it's
would
tedious
ask,
if you don't have the right paperwork in place, which from what we're saying, Bouanga doesn't have like
anything,
green card, all that kind of stuff. So he's starting from scratch.
No, and Max makes a good point. I can like if you look at Ricky Puig, who is already here, already played for the Galaxy, being on Barcelona and being in tours with Barcelona to the United States actually benefited him because he had a work visa, he had a visitor visa. That allowed that process to be a lot quicker. To Max's point, Bouanga does not have that, so that's what's taking longer. Now, in the interim, Christian Teo, like, this came out of the blue. I honestly thought, I even tweeted about it. I was like, this doesn't seem to make any sense, but it looks like it's happening.
It's amazing there's a contingency plan for all this. It just shows you how remarkable this club has been with all of the comings and goings and all the homework and research and relationships that they've built to put this into effect. And I see a lot of stuff about Brian Rodriguez, and we don't know. Brian could be here Friday and playing for Austin. We shall see. And I just want to defend, and I know he hasn't been great in front of goal. I'm gonna, if and when he does leave, I'm gonna be really bummed out. Brian was one of my favorite players. I know that might be a bit of a shock, but I know Steve Cherundolo sees him as the same. I know Steve wants him there to see as a guy who can be that unique cog into the attack that can open space up for other guys and do that hard work and take on defenders, which he does better than anyone. So, I mean, if you wake up one day and there's no Brian here, I'm going to be pretty sad because, yeah, the finishing was there, and I know there was some frustration because he's a DP, but this is a mercurial talent that just didn't quite, turn into the diamond, but he might still somewhere else. And he worked his tail off. He had a good season. It was just interrupted by the injury.
No, yeah, he certainly did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Vince.
I was going to say, every time he got it going, he got injured this season. I think the biggest thing with Brian, he just couldn't stay healthy this season. And yes, he had a bad game against DC, but who didn't? Everyone had a bad game against DC. And to Max's point, it did seem like he kind of figured it out, but he would get in a couple good games. Like, remember, he came back against San Jose at home, had a great game, was unplayable. I mean, he did everything right. He set up that goal that really clinched it. And then they subbed him off, and then we didn't see him again for a few weeks. And so that, to me, is just the toughest thing. It really felt like Brian had it together. Just snake bitten a bit. I don't think it's a thing about talent, and I don't even think it's about attitude. Now, I understand as fans, if you have a player going on record and saying, hey, I want to go, I want to move on, it's not a good look. And I'm sure the team sat him down and said, come on, man. We know you got stuff going on, your agent's moving stuff around, and we know that you came here knowing one day you would move on somewhere else. So you always have to be open to a move, but you can't be that blunt with it. And that's just not a way to treat the fans. But as it pertains to training and attitude with his teammates, everyone loved him. And I think that they're gonna miss him, at least in terms of his personality and who he is. And some people are talking about how the team's getting older. I mean, his age profile definitely fit. But it seems like for whatever thing, anytime something comes up, John Thornton and Will Kuntz seem to have a plan. And this plan's going even bigger than we ever thought. Like, no one would have thought Chiellini was coming in. Then you definitely didn't think Bale's coming in. Then Bouanga, who, guys, Bouanga is going to be probably one of the top 5 players in MLS. He's that kind of level talent. I mark it down. He's the finished product already. He's everything Brian is, but he's 27. He's already done it all in France in a big league. And now when you see Brian moving out, they're moving Brian out and they're bringing Cristian Tello. So this is a former Barcelona player, played with Real Betis last season. I mean, this guy's a big deal.
And other than Carlos Vela, I mean, most of our designated players have been under the age of 23 and 22. So this is certainly a step in a different direction where you are bringing in players that have experience, that are physically more mature, more importantly, mentally more mature. And I think that's a step in the right direction. Obviously, we're making moves to not just necessarily win this season, but to continue to go abroad and create somewhat of a dynasty throughout the course of the next couple of years. And I can't say I'm going to miss Brian as much. You mentioned snake bitten. I would blame his agent on some of the things. Who knows what his agent filled his head with, letting him know that he's better than this. And obviously we've seen where he's gone, his time in Spain and whatnot. But I mean, I like the fact that we're getting older, physically bigger and more mature and mentally more mature players on our lineup, because I think that's a big deal when it comes down to things, especially in the grind of a season.
I think getting older is by design, and they're still going to be on top of. Look, they want to get this academy going, and they will, and that's going to start bearing fruit. And we'll see if that means players coming on. There is the 22 under the under 22 initiative, which got them Jose Cifuentes, for example. That's going to continue down the road because it's been successful. But this is a move to win trophies, to have that experience. Even though it's a little bit risky when you get him this late in the season, you want to see how it meshes. I will also add about Brian. When he arrived here, I spoke to people, and Jorge Ramos, who's Uruguayan, who's got the hit show on ESPN, he said that he was the #1 prospect coming out of Uruguay. So he was an established guy playing for the national team upon the arrival here. So, I mean, he had a lot on his plate. And, you know, a young player hearing all that probably is counterproductive. To put it nicely sometimes.
Yeah, I actually looked this up yesterday. Oddly enough, LAFC for weighted minutes for age is actually tied for 12th, so that still keeps them in the top half of one of the younger teams. So I think it's about balance. You could argue that last season there was too much youth, and they've seemed to find a way to inject a little bit of veteran leadership so that every game at least there's a baseline of how they play every game. Whereas, you know, you have some young guys, they can just disappear or they can be scared by the moment. So I think they find that right balance, but there will be changes. And this kind of moves me on to this next question from Gerardo. Does LAFC look to reinforce the midfield due to the possibility of losing Sifu and Acosta if they have good World Cup showing? So let's project a little bit. What are positions that you guys are looking at, come 2023? It looks like wingers locked up for a long time with Bale, Vela, Bouanga, Tello. I mean, that position's locked up, but I tend to agree. Midfield is the one where I think there's going to be a big shakeup going forward.
Yeah, I would. It's Sifu in particular because look, we don't know anything, but you see rumors, stuff swirling. You do a search on Jose Cifuentes, and you see what comes up. For every reason he's going to be in demand, and he's a certain player that's a good fit for certain leagues. And that kind of guy, every club
he's a good fit
needs,
for every league.
For everybody. I mean, he just works hard. He's got the skill. He's got the athleticism. He can go box to box. He can hit a ball. He can score. He's a remarkable talent. And maybe LAFC, you'd love to see him stay here, but you'd also like to see him challenge, especially if this is a great opportunity for Ecuador. I get the feeling that first game is going to roll up, which is going to be the first game of the World Cup, and he's going to be in the starting 11 on this trajectory. He's a really good shot of doing that. You would hope you could get someone like that. Maybe you turn to South America again, and they have a good pipeline for that. I mean, they've hit with a lot of the South American guys, both Ecuadorian guys. Certainly Chicho Arango, even though he's a little bit older. Brian to a lesser degree. Diego Rossi, without question. Edward Atuesta. Someone in the midfield with those technical skills who can be like an all-around midfielder if you need to get, even if you have to get cover for Cifuentes because you know he might go in a year or two, maybe now's the time to get it.
I mean, we've got wingers for days at the end of it, and that's what we've looked at. And yes, if Sifu if and when he went to Brighton and Hove Albion, which, by the way, they love their Ecuadorians in the southern part of England, that could be an interesting move. But another thing that's been reported on ESPN, we're potentially losing a defender, and that of Mamadou Fall. The reports linking him to Villarreal, which would connect him with Unai Emery for all you Arsenal fans out there. So, I mean, I think between defenders and midfielders, that's where we would look to need to fill some of our holes. We're good. I think we're good with our goalkeepers. Maxime Crepeau, our best goalkeeper ever, only needing 2 more clean sheets to tie Tyler Miller's 2019 record. And from what we saw from John McCarthy in that match against Club America and the previous match that he played in, I mean, he's a solid backup within his own right that could probably start for any other club. But I would look to fill in another defender spot, especially if Mamadou heads over to La Liga.
Fair. I think Mamadou going there, though, is really, he just needs to try to get some minutes. I think he's going to start with Villarreal B. He needs to play, and there's just no spot. Yeah, there's no spots for him right now.
I didn't know Villarreal had a B side. So if they get promoted, there would be 2 Villarreal teams in the La Liga, or no?
I think there's a rule against, you can't go all the way to the top. But
that's not cool. That's interesting. You should go to the top.
I know. Great. It'd be great, right?
Hey, I did see a question about the Supporter Shield, and I'm a believer now after that result that don't even think about it, and I don't think they are. But you want home field advantage in the West, and see what happens on the East down the road. See how Philadelphia certainly wraps up their season as well. But I looked at it, and I think they have 8 games, and they require 16 points to get it. That's a lot. So that's going to be like 5-6 wins probably. So Supporter Shield seems like a real reach at this point, and that's fine. Because what New England did, they didn't lose any games down the stretch last season to establish the record.
Well, there you go. Max I saw that question from Dexter, and I was going to say we don't have any math guys here, but Max Bretos has crunched the numbers, and he thinks it's going to take 5 wins. So there you go. And Philly, of course, holding up the replica Supporter Shield, reminding you that we already have one. This would be our second Supporter Shield, and it would get you into the CONCACAF Champions League, which is the most important thing, I think, at this point. Great questions, guys. I think we answered a lot of questions throughout this. Let's move on to everybody's favorite segment, Stoppage Time. It's our chance to talk about anything and everything on our mind. I believe, Max Bretos, you are going to kick us off with your Stoppage Time topic. What do you got for us, Max?
Is Chris going to put my one-liner in there?
He's going to type it as you speak.
Go ahead. Start typing it, Chris. I like the dramatic effect.
The Doogie Howser effect.
Didn't they make a remake of Doogie Howser? I think I watched every episode. When I was a kid, I'd watch Doogie Howser.
Same.
I hope they don't
typing.
Remake it.
We are excellent typing. Is this dramatic or what? We can get both this season, Ox says.
He's trying to
we are witnessing an unprecedented season in turnover for a club. And if these moves that we are hearing with Teo and Brian and obviously Denny Boanga coming in, you are looking at something like we hear about even Manchester United, how they wanted to reboot this club. And when you look at them, it's still the same players from a year ago. LAFC have changed so much in 2022, beginning with like the 7 or 8 guys that they brought in at the beginning of the season with MLS experience, trophy experience. Some of those guys are gone. I mean, Danny Musovski, if Mamadou Fall, this loan thing does happen, Pancho Ginella, Doniel Henry, Tajuri Shradi, all these guys that came in and have been gone. You don't have these guys that come in for 4 months. And then you have the new faces here with 8 games to go, the business end of the season. You're competing. You are the favorites to lift MLS Cup. You bring in Denny Buanga. You bring in Giorgio Chiellini. You bring in Gareth Bale. You know, that's not a seamless transition, and possibly Christian Teo. So this is just a testament for the ambition for the club, but you got to be careful too, because you're taking a risk that everyone kind of comes in together and blends in as a team. So far, it's gone great. We've had those incredible moments with Chiellini and Bale, with the Shalalas. They've both gotten some minutes. You'd like to see a little bit more here down the stretch, but that's still the process of adjusting to a new club. And now you have to do the same thing with Buanga. He's not going to be idle. He's going to be a contributor to this team. And you have to change lockers and all of this stuff coming in. I haven't seen this in MLS, but I don't think I've ever seen it in some of the top leagues where you have had this kind of turnover during a season. And again, it's a risk. You have to wish and hope for the best things to fall in place, but so far it's happened. But again, we're along for this crazy ride. We'll see how it ends.
Yeah, we're in for everything. It's David says everything. Shield, MLS Cup, CONCACAF Champions, Club World Cup. I'm not sure if they're going to be doing that much anymore. We still haven't even heard if the Seattle Sounders are going to get a chance their day at the Club World Cup. So
the thing about it, we have a player, say Denny Bouanga, who probably has no idea what the Supporter Shield is, and he's gonna be a big part in getting it. I'm not saying maybe he does. Remember, Chiellini was a student and all that, but we have guys that are coming into a completely different situation, and they have to kind of get right into it with everyone else and set their goals and get those targets.
Yeah, A+ in recruitment. Philly, what's your stoppage time?
All right, I guess I have to ask the question: am I waiting for the Doogie Howser type in, or do I just go for it?
No, Max just wanted to be
Can you hum the theme song?
Ooh, I can't remember the theme song, but I recall the screen being blue and Doogie's friend climbing up the tree and into the window anytime he would
buddy
type.
Max? Wasn't it Max?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was Max. That's true. Totally forgot about that. Good show, by the way. To me, my stoppage time is losing to San Jose was actually a good thing. Sure, they're in 13th place. Sure, they are 33 points behind us. But as I mentioned earlier, this was their MLS Cup. You look at their last 5 games, loss, draw, loss. I mean, I felt like I was looking at cholesterol readings. But losing to them was a good thing because, again, 3 games over the course of 8 days, our boys were tired. They come back down to earth, and now they could start to recalibrate. Where do we go? We go to the massage table and then reassess and then progress. That's what the team is going to do. Now, Austin is a team that you want to pay attention to, obviously. The last time LAFC sort of went on one of these like 3-game in a short period of time benders, they ended up losing in the U.S. Open Cup to the LA Galaxy. But shortly after that is when they started their 7-game winning streak. So that's a pretty important detail. They're realizing that there are holes that they need to plug in, and I'd rather make the mistake of losing to a bad team now as opposed to later on in the season. This isn't high school sports. A team isn't going to dominate all season long. You're going up against other professional athletes who on any given day can have the best day of their lives. So losing to San Jose when we did was a good thing. That was their MLS Cup. We're playing for a Shield. We're playing for an MLS Cup. We're playing for a CONCACAF Champions League. We have so much more going for us, and it's fine. We win in Austin. That's a good thing. It puts things into perspective, and our boys are going to rock and roll on our tour of Texas coming up. I'm good with this. We beat Austin. Wow. San Jose is an afterthought. 3
Texas stops to end the season.
I know, weird, right?
You get Central Texas, South Texas, North Texas. Just got to play El Paso Locomotive in some friendly here, and we'll make it complete.
I know.
San Antonio FC.
We're doing our own Texas Cup to end the season. Okay, my stoppage time, guys. I want to talk a little bit about rotation. Rotation's not something to worry about, and it's normal. I think there's probably not even a handful of teams anymore. There's just a couple, maybe a Man City, Liverpool, that like when they change and they rotate, they can change out with other world-class players. Unfortunately, no MLS team is in that stratosphere yet, but LAFC is the closest, and they do have depth. So when Steve Cherundolo looks and says, hey, I need to get some guys some rest, he's pretty confident in the players he can bring in. Obviously, it went sideways in this last match, guys, but this has got to be the most nerve-wracking moment for a coach. You've put a team out there, you've been on a historic record pace, and then you say, okay, in looking at the long-term picture, and even in the short term, hey, I got to get that win in Austin. I got to make some changes. I got to rest some guys. So you try to do a little bit of chemistry, you do a little bit of math, you try to put something together that you think's going to work. And then, honestly, you kind of just got to hope for the best. And I think the biggest disappointment for Steve Cherundolo was not the way they played per se, but maybe just the mentality and the intensity. And we've already talked about that. But rotations are not about being arrogant, and it's not about playing a lesser side. It really is about the bigger picture. And the best managers understand when guys need rest. I look back to Jose Mourinho used to send guys on vacation in the middle of the season. He'd say, hey, go take a few days off, go to Spain, maybe go to Ibiza and have some fun with your family and then come on back. So I think
if you're going with your family, you go to Mallorca.
Yeah, Mallorca.
Avoid
there you go.
Ibiza. Yeah,
there you go. So I think maybe we're not as used to it in MLS just because so many teams can't rotate. I think of like a Peter Vermees team, Sporting KC. He wouldn't rotate at all, and then they would just boop right come playoff time, just fall off the map. So Steve is doing this in the best regard for his team and the whole outlook, but it's difficult to watch for that moment when you rotate. But I think this is what's going to set them up for that stretch run. As we've said, got to go to Texas. Those are going to be tough, hot games. So got to get these guys in shape. And I know you all want to see Bale start. I'd rather see Bale start a playoff game than a random game in San Jose when he's slipping and falling and looking like he's on skates. So rotations are normal.
That Parkville in Austin, I would love to see Bale in all his glory taking. That'd be a great surface for him to be on. And by the way, do you see these ticket prices? David Day was saying for the Austin game, $140 for the cheapest, which is great news. This means it's a big game in MLS and people want to go. And that's what Austin's been a great addition. So this is a big event. And I know we'll have some supporters there because it's a great city to go to.
It's awesome.
It is a great city to go to.
And there's like
stadium.
seven direct flights from LAX to Austin, which is incredible too.
I would say in this ultra capitalistic world that we live in, that is great news. But I do think MLS should go out of their way to maybe cap a certain amount of tickets at a certain level. Away supporters are what's going to drive this league that we have to another level. And we're seeing a lot of clubs really invest in helping supporters get to places. So come on, MLS, help these away supporters out a little bit. It really helps the atmosphere. I think it's just a good thing. But that's going to wrap it up for us. 360, we're back, baby. We're finally back. I want to remind you guys that Austin game is coming up this Friday. It's a huge match. And so we're going to have a 110 football times LAFC watch party. We're going to be out at Brooklyn Avenue Pizza, I believe. Brooklyn Pizza. Oh, I got it wrong. Brooklyn Avenue Pizza Co. in Boyle Heights. There we go. I got it. That's going to be the watch party. It's at 5 p.m. So if you can join us in person, please do. If not, check us out on LAFC's YouTube channel. We'll be live streaming that. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll have some cool guests. Just a huge match. So let's get ready for that. I see the tacos and trophies from Andreas. It is the breakfast burrito versus breakfast tacos rivalry. So we'll decide who wins that one. And thank you guys for joining. Thanks for sticking with us. It was good to see a lot of familiar names in the chat. You guys are active as always, and we're back. I'm glad Max Bretos is back. I'm glad Philly's back. It was awesome to hang out with you guys on a Monday.
I got the Bretos Mentos shirt from Club Football Club if you want to get one. My son has one too.
Get yourself one before the next LAFC home game so you can run into Max Bretos and take a picture with him with your shirt.
If I see someone with his shirt on the stadium, I have to do something pretty significant. We'll see.
You used to offer to buy people beers on the podcast.
I'll buy someone a beer, yes. Buy a beer. I just want to wait in line.
Don't you still owe me a shoey from 2019, Max?
Uh-oh.
I shall not be doing a shoey.
Boo!
All right. You've got plenty of time to buy your shirt, find Bretos, and we'll settle this.
Shout out from Gabby, of course.
Yeah, we'll settle this shoey
Mentos
debate.
gum is the best gum in the marketplace.
Oh, hot take. Okay. On that
Bretos,
bombshell.
the fresh maker.
Yeah. On that bombshell, we'll see you guys all at the watch party, and then we'll see you once again, LAFC 360 back on Mondays.